So this is for Sculpt January, Melissa says. Day 25 healing. Tried to make a 3D model of the Fungal Enchanter. I am a beginner at digital sculpting, and this is basically my first model I made from one single concept, not from multiple reference pictures. I spent about 1.5 days on this, so it might be a bit messy when it comes to the subtools. Although I like him, I know that I didn't get all the details right. Posing was a problem for me too. So we have a neutral pose and an actual posed one with all of the different objects here. I would like to know your general opinion on my sculpt, and I would like to ask for some tips regarding clean and sharp edges / change of planes. I notice that I somehow always end up smoothing like crazy and never get clean, even edges. Well, I think we can help with that. I don't think that'll be too hard. I use the brush Damn Standard a lot, but I have to smooth, pinch, and redo the strokes like 10 times before I think it's okay. Is this normal? Yes and no. You will come up with better techniques the more you practice it, and maybe we can look at some of those as well. Seems to be an inefficient workflow. Thanks a lot for your time, and greetings from Germany, Melissa. Well, hello Melissa, if you are here, and hello to everybody else that's joining us today. Let's go ahead and get started here. And let me make sure I didn't miss anything in chat before we do that. I feel like you should do retopo critiques too. Topology is such an underground thing. No one talks much about it. That's because a lot of it for human characters has kind of already been figured out, and there's not too much to really talk about. There's pretty much like a by-the-book guide that you can follow. I still to this day don't know how to retopo clothes plus characters to make it game ready. In terms of clothing, depending on the shape and form, it's going to be different every time. And not the first model, but I am a beginner. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and take a look. So the first thing that you mentioned, Melissa, was that you want to know my general opinion, and you said I didn't get all the details right, and posing was a problem. So I think I'll very briefly mention the neutral one that you submitted, and thank you for the follow there. Oh, I'm sorry, Outside Lane, thank you for the raid with 28 beautiful people. Hello everybody, we're doing live critiques today. Feel free to say hello in chat or just lurk in the background. We're looking at a model sent in by Melissa for the Fungal Enchanter. Outside Lane, hope you had an awesome stream, and welcome everybody that's new here. So the first thing that I will mention very quickly about the neutral pose here is just kind of general cleanliness. It would be a lot easier on you if you spent the time to probably, I would say break up these fingers, and that's probably about it. Other than that, just like remeshing this. I think general kind of dirtiness is your only real problem here. In terms of the actual form of this, I think you've done a pretty good job. There are some areas that I would probably clean up and really pay attention to my silhouette a little bit better, but I think you've actually done a pretty good job here. I think there's just, you know, some minimal, let's say general messiness that I would clean up. And that includes kind of stuff in your fingers, like splitting those up and getting those into separate, or not separate objects necessarily, but at least separated, so they're not all clumpy and stuck together. So that's all I'll say about your neutral. We can go ahead and look at your posed figure now. So in terms of just general, my general opinion on this, I think you've done a pretty good job, especially for being such a beginner, as you mentioned. I would say that accuracy, I could look at this, and if I knew the Fungal Enchanter character very well, I'd say, yeah, that's the Fungal Enchanter. But in terms of accuracy, it's just not quite there proportionally, and some of the form is just a little bit too messy. So in terms of some of these textured areas where you have these like spirals going on, you mentioned using something like the Damn Standard, and I think you said, so you can never get clean edges. You always end up smoothing. Use the Damn Standard a lot, but you have to smooth, pinch, and redo the strokes like 10 times before I think it's okay. Is this normal? So it would be a lot easier to work on something like this if you had some subdivs. And let's say just in general, looking at the shape of the thigh. Because I think this is kind of a problem in multiple areas of your model, not just here. And I just want to point out this one specifically so that maybe you can look at it a little bit more in the future. So here I'm noticing you just have some awkwardness in your surface. This form doesn't feel really defined. It feels like a deflated bag. It doesn't feel like a thigh or an upper leg. It doesn't feel fleshy, or it doesn't feel even round enough to represent the leg. So make sure that when you're rotating around your model, you're just really paying attention to these areas to make sure that you're not getting these, you know, let's grab this soft sharp edge. So we're not getting like these weird kind of like cut in areas in our model. And if we look here, it's kind of hard to notice maybe, but I think if I exaggerate it for you really quick, I can just tell based on the way the light is hitting this. If I just tighten up here, you got like this awkward plane change going on here. And so that would be like my first general kind of cleanup stuff that I would do. And then talking about this specific kind of stroke up here, let's clean up your surface. And let's see, so you mentioned using the damn standard brush, right? And I'm assuming that's what you use to create these spiraled shapes, right? So I recommend my first point of order here would be to use Lazy Mouse. And you can find that under the stroke palette under Lazy Mouse, of course. And there are a bunch of different settings in here. I recommend that you copy mine. And the one that you might want to tweak if you're doing something like a spiral is your lazy radius. You might want to, come on pen, work. You might want to use a little bit lower of a lazy radius. And then take the time to, you know, draw that out. And that's very quickly. So if you're trying to get these really nice clean shapes, what I recommend is doing something like this, and then you mentioned smoothing out and using the pinch brush. You might just need a little bit more denser mesh or denser polygons in that specific area. So if I add a subdiv here, it is subdividing the entire model. This is why I kind of recommend doing a remesh and be a little bit more clean, a little bit more concise. Thank you, Ray Bunnysynth, for the follow there. I appreciate that. Spirals were done by masking and moving towards the core of the model. And thank you, Ray, for the sub as well, man. That's very cool of you. Appreciate that. So, what did you say? They were done by masking and moving towards the core of the model. Okay, so you mask them with the mask pen brush. So, let's blow up this image real quick. So what I want you to focus on, if you look at this shape here, look how nice and tight and clean this is. It has like this really hard edge. It almost feels hard surface in nature, carved into his body. And you got the same thing going on down here. It's like this really cool shape. And by the way, this concept is by Max Grecki, I believe. I didn't know he made this, but I do know who Max Grecki is, and I saw that you mentioned that in your email there. Ultronics DNB, sure. Thank you for the follow there. I just absolutely butchered that. So, the first thing that you need to do, again, really control that surface, really clean that up. So, to show that, to show you what I want, to show you what you should do, let's just take this leg, and I'm going to split this leg off as a separate piece. I wouldn't actually split this. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way, the way that I'm doing it, just for your leg. I don't know what's going on with my pen today, guys. My pen is not wanting to cooperate. And then I would, and sorry for the bad cut, this is just for a quick demonstration, I would recommend using the Z-remesher and just getting that low, taking a step backwards, really focus on that initial form. I know that the legs aren't really visible under this. I'm just kind of using this as an example piece. Maybe the arm would have been a little bit better, but we're already through here, so let's focus on this. So let's really fill in this form. We have some nice clean polys here, clean enough, right? It's not going to be perfect around here up towards the top, but we're starting to get a nice clean shape. And the way that you kind of revolve a shape in 3D, there are a lot of fundamentals that go into it, but really just kind of look for the major form that's happening here. So from the front, we want that leg to feel like the same shape from the side, from underneath, from the back, from the top down. especially on limbs and stuff, we want to make sure that we're getting, you know, not a really awkward squashed shape. So you kind of had that going on a little bit there, so taking the time to really clean that up. And then after you get that to a good place, again, instead of using the mask tool, because those look like they're so hard and sharp and carved in there, try to use something like maybe the dam standard, and then also use that in combination with like a pinch brush or something. So I'll grab the pinch brush very quickly, and this time with the pinch brush, I'm gonna hold the Alt key. And the Alt key is essentially the negative version or subtractive version of a stroke. So there's what the pinch brush would normally do, and when I hold Alt, it'll instead pinch in. So we'll do that really quick, and my stroke or lazy radius might be a little bit low here. I think it is, so let's just crank that up a little, and we'll pinch around here and try to get a nice kind of quick crisp edge, and I'll leave some of that undone. So now you can see that we're starting to get this tight edge around the outside as well. And that's because the pinch brush has, the way it works is it pulls the geometry from around your area of focal shift, which is that outside red circle. So you can see how the geometry is kind of pulling there. But when we use that Alt stroke, we kind of get this added benefit of it pulling the geometry from like the top of that surface. And if you want, you can go ahead and hit that with a second pass very quickly, maybe be a little bit light, turn that Z intensity down. And now you can see that we're starting to sharpen up this edge even more and get closer to that kind of hard surfacey feel. But remember, the main important thing that we do here first is make sure that the major form of our leg is correct first. That is so very important, because if that shape feels wobbly and wonky and off, the rest of it's not gonna really hold together no matter how much cool detailing we do on top of that. So like up here, I would probably fill in this. This gets like a little awkward and deep, so I'd probably, you know, take care of stuff like that. Is that a, no, it is not. I really like the kind of gesture that you have going on here. I think that's really nice. In terms of other stuff, like you said, I think a lot of these are pretty dirty, but in terms of maybe getting some cleaner shapes here, I think I would recommend the same thing, the same process. Kind of stepping those down, maybe using Z-Remesh with something like polygroups. So if you come down here into Z-Remesh and turn on Keep Groups, I'll crank this down really low again, and just very quickly, I'll make a mask, and if I press Ctrl W, that will polygroup that mask. And then we can maybe make a couple more of these really fast. And obviously you'd want to do this a lot cleaner, just for a quick demonstration. And then remesh that, and then you can see that we're getting a poly loop or edge loop around where I put that group. So if you can control where you have that, if you maybe put it a little bit closer to that edge, you'll get something lower poly, something that's easier to manipulate, and then maybe you can come in with a Z modeler brush and start creasing up some edge loops and stuff like that, so that when you subdivide them later on, get a nice, crisp, clean edge. Or you could even bevel those to get kind of a softer edge. But that's what I recommend playing around with. I think that'll get you in a good place. Let's make sure we're not missing any other messages here in chat real quick. If your pen is not working, open MS Paint and doodle in it. No, my pen is working. What happens is occasionally it like desyncs from my tablet, so all I have to do is like pull it away for a second, then put it back and it works again. Not sure why. Paint always fixes the issue for your driver. That is so cool. Well, awesome. I'm glad we were able to help there. Let me see if there was anything else big that you mentioned here. I don't think there was, but you can let me know in chat. And I think, let's see, what else kind of stands out to me? The other thing that really stood out to me was kind of the same deal down in your legs. So kind of stepping back, looking at that most simplistic form. And for the form around here, it doesn't really feel like, it doesn't look like what it's supposed to be. And what I mean by that is this is supposed to be, he's like bending his leg, right? And you're getting those creases, those folds where the skin is folding. And yes, it is like really sharp and hard. You can also see that the same thing is going on up in the neck here. You've kind of done the same thing. So clean up that original shape. Use that pinch brush again. And maybe to start, you can use something like a damn standard brush and very lightly kind of go over top of this and start building that up first, and then building that, or not building it down, cutting into it just very quickly. And I'm using default brushes, but for something like this, I would probably use a different brush that I have that I'll show you in just a moment that you can find online for free from the Pixologic website. And then just go through and, you know, pinch that up, alt pinch through here, and just start to clean up these nice tight edges like what we're seeing in there. So a brush that I recommend you go find on the internets is the Mech Cut brush, the MAH Cut Mech brush. There's like an A and B. I think this is, or an A1. This is my version of that brush. It's a little bit different, a little bit more clean, but it's essentially like a damn standard brush and a pinch brush came together and made a baby, and it's this one. It's a really good brush, and let me just show you what it does. So, kinda quick few strokes there, and a couple quick strokes here on my surface. So you can kind of see how that starts working. And then that in combination with having a really clean base shape to put that on top of, you're gonna get some nice, crisp, clean edges. Cool, cool, cool. In terms of the fingers, if you're having trouble with these, since these are also combined in here, what I recommend doing, I think Z-Remesher will help you out a lot. I'm guessing you Dynameshed almost all of this. It looks like you did Dynamesh for almost all of this. I think you did this without any subtools at all, which good job for you. That's pretty cool. Also, this is awesome. This is really fun up here. I like that. That's neat. I like the way you did that. Good job on that. For the fingers, Z-Remesh and subtools up here are subdivision levels will absolutely help you a lot. These are very messy, so it's gonna be a little tough for me to spend the time to split all of these off. So very quickly, I'll just show you what I recommend doing. Use something like the selection lasso. If you don't know how to activate that, just hold Control and Shift, click up here, and instead of using the select rectangle, use the select lasso. I have a tutorial on some of these cool lasso brushes coming up on my YouTube channel like tomorrow. So let's split that off. You can find that under Split Hidden. So we'll just very quickly split this as a separate piece of geometry. Hey, it's this really dirty thumb. That's okay. Let me run a quick Dynamesh, and I know I'm butchering your model, but that's what we like to do here. We love to butcher people's work, just so we can get to the point quicker. So now we have a separate thumb. Yay! And now we can spread this out and do the same thing with our other fingers. Open up the hand, and then we can remesh them, get something that's low poly that we can add subdivision levels to, and then we can close up that hand without worrying about the fingers getting fused together, which is the bad thing that we like to avoid. Let's remesh that one more time. And I noticed that your Z-Remesh target poly count is set to like 90K. I would say there's pretty much never a reason to do that. It kind of defeats the purpose of remeshing. If you're unfamiliar with projecting, just as a, and there's kind of a little bit of a more clean thumb already, just for reference. If you're not familiar with Z-Remeshing and projecting, let me show you very quickly here. Let's find something like very quick. Let's see. Okay, so we got this rope piece, right? What I'm gonna do is hide everything. So I've shift clicked on my current subtool. That turns off the eye icon for everything. If I click, it turns it back on. I duplicate that. I select the top one, always the top one because it's the one that has your undo history. And then all I'm gonna do is run a Z-Remesh at, I don't know, 1K is probably more than enough for something like this. So we'll remesh that really fast, and ta-da! All right, that looks pretty good, but all our details are gone. They're actually pretty well kept through this remesh, but let's say they are all gone. 0.5. Let's go a little bit lower. There we go. Oh no, all our details. So what you can do is Control D, add a subdivision, click on project. And the way that project works, I have solo mode on, so these both are visible, but I have solo mode on so that only one is actually being kind of displayed, kind of rendered on screen. So I've added a subdivision level, and then I'm just gonna click on project. Ooh, and look at that. One more project, subdivide project, subdivide project, subdivide project, etc. So now we have all the details from our Dynamesh piece of geometry, plus we have subdivision levels that we can step up and down and manipulate a lot easier than something like this. So if I want to move this with my move brush, look how stretched and crazy that gets. But if I go down here on this piece and step down in my subdivision levels and then move it, well now, because there's less polygons, it's easier for me to manipulate this shape. And it's also much more easy for me to mask and do stuff like rotate. Whereas with something like this, if I wanted to mask and rotate, it's gonna stretch and destroy all my polygons like that. So switch to some subdivs wherever you can, and I think that'll be a nice little kind of progression for you. Cool, cool, cool.